perfection doesn't exist.
Perfection is impossible.
Perfection is the biggest lie.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Perfect doesn't exist.
Perfection, it don't exist.
There's no such thing as perfect. Huh?
It's my belief that there is truly no such thing as a perfect film. What the hell is that?
Do you want this? Do you need it?
Okay, let me start over. As a young lad, I didn't believe that perfect films existed. This worldview completely changed, though, when I saw the cinematic masterpiece that is Shrek 2. Suddenly, this was my favorite movie. I didn't want to watch anything else. In fact, during that time, I don't know that I needed to watch anything else. I had never seen a film like it before, and it would be such a long time before I'd see another film that would be equally as great. Before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this, let's get some important questions out of the way. Am I exaggerating how much I like this film, for instance? Believe it or not, while I think it's funny that one of the best films of the last 30 years is a Shrek film, I really do think it's this great. Do you actually think this film is a perfect film? For the sake of views and making sure this isn't a clickbaity title, yeah, I do. But in actuality, I think it's a perfect film by my definition. I don't really believe you have to think so, but I would love it if you'd hear me out, because I am serious about why I think this. Just to state the obvious, Shrek 2 is a sequel.
You need to leave!
I know. Sequels get a lot of deserved hate, and while I do agree that I'm not a huge fan of unwarranted or lazy sequels, I'm looking at you specifically, Shrek 3 and Kung Fu Panda 4, I do think that sequels have their place. Mainly if you're gonna find ways to innovate or put that story and characters in a completely different environment and setting. Shrek 2 does both of these things in the best ways, while ironing out the weak points of the first film. Don't get me wrong, I love the first Shrek, and think it's a phenomenal film in its own right. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't any room for improvement, which is partially why Shrek 2 is able to work as such a good companion. I think one of the reasons the first Shrek works as well as it does is because it takes place in a world that people are already kind of familiar with, by being full of fairy tales, princesses, and other mythological creatures. It's mainly a by-the-book story of a princess who's captured and needs to be rescued, something which we've seen a million times thanks to Mario alone.
Mamma mia!
Shrek changes this narrative slightly, though, through satire, parody, and by having an ogre be Fiona's knight in shining armor. But at the end of the day, it's a story where our hero saves the princess, and they fall in love. Shrek and Fiona's love story is well told in the first film, and Lord Farquaad is an excellent villain. But I would argue the emphasis of the movie isn't on the story itself. It's almost as if the creators of the first Shrek picked a more standard and conventional story so they could focus so heavily on the other factors that make Shrek the truly great movie that it is. Iconic characters, hilarious comedy, amazing character development, and truly awesome moments and set pieces. Like, could you actually say the castle rescue scene wasn't one of the most badass things you'd seen after you watched Shrek? With all of this being said, Shrek 2 is able to reap these rewards of having such a solid prequel. Shrek and Fiona's love story is already established, tons of side characters that have a much bigger role in this film have already been introduced, and because this film takes place from the second the first Shrek film ends, we already know where we are in the story and very little setup is needed, allowing for more time for the narrative to take place. The story is much faster paced with no wasted moments. I think this story also gives so much additional character growth to Shrek and Fiona, allowing us to see their insecurities and how much they love each other, despite all the adversities they face for having such a quote-unquote unconventional relationship. Shrek's fear of not being enough for Fiona and wondering if she's settling for him instead of finding her Prince Charming is a factor that even as a kid, I was like, damn, this movie is really that deep. Fiona having to wrestle with whether her parents love her for her or who they want her to be is equally mind-blowing. Especially when you factor in the fact that she is dealing with trauma of being locked away in a castle by her own parents for well over a decade. The analogies that this movie contains of race, class, sexuality, or gender also make it able to be analyzed endlessly. If you are a part of a class of people that has been othered, I think you can feel some sense of belonging from this movie. And I love that the ultimate message of this movie is that someone who loves you should be able to love you for who you truly are, not any other version of yourself. I also particularly like that they show Shrek's love for Fiona is so strong though, that he is willing to give up the thing that previously seemed to be the most important thing in the world to him, his identity as an ogre. Do you remember when I said that just because Shrek is a great film, it doesn't mean there wasn't room for improvement? Well, this is one of the biggest factors that I think the second film has over the first film. Shrek's animation is serviceable, but it's one of the factors that I think has aged the most poorly for the first film.
What is that? Ugh, it's hideous!
Oh, that's not very nice.
There are still moments that look great, but I think the best moments in the first Shrek look like the worst moments in the second Shrek, if we're being honest. And once again, that isn't throwing shade at the first Shrek. I feel like the second movie is just really that big of an improvement. Shrek 1 has one of the most iconic needle drops in history. And you can't argue with me on this because I didn't even have to say what it is for you to know what it is. However, despite not having All-Star in the sequel, they kept this music mindset for Shrek 2 by having at least 3 perfect music montages. Accidentally in Love at the beginning of the movie, changes when Shrek and Donkey have transformed in their human and horse selves, and my personal favorite, holding out for a hero at the film's climax. With that being said, I do think this is one of the few factors of the sequel that's much more neck and neck with the first film. That hallelujah moment in the first Shrek is pretty great after all. I will concede on one more point that Shrek 1 might have over Shrek 2. On his own, no other character in Shrek has ever surpassed the greatness of Lord Farquaad.
What an icon.
However, I think Shrek 2 knew this, which is why they gave us not one, but 2 pretty great villains in their own right. The Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming each have so much sauce.
My diet is ruined.
Cherry flavored. Want a taste?
And together, they're even more entertaining to watch. Plus, if we had to sacrifice even a little bit of Lord Farquaad's greatness to get Puss in Boots, I would do it 1,000,000 times over. I'm normally not even that crazy about cats. I have my own traumas, I'm sorry. It's a me problem, and I'm dealing with it, I swear. But even as a kid, I knew I would die for this little sweet boy. Also, the fact that we have gotten not one, but 2 really solid spin-off movies from Puss in Boots should show how much Riz this little cute kitty has in his own right. So, yeah, that's why I think Shrek 2 is a perfect movie. If you don't agree with me, you can
find me at Whole Foods, bitch. I don't care.
But honestly, thank you so much for watching. If you don't know me, thank you for watching this far into the video, especially. My name is Babe Thinny. I stream on Twitch and YouTube. I play games picked by my viewers, and I would love to have you stop by if you want to. We have a lovely community full of awesome individuals. If you couldn't tell, I also love movies and like making stuff. So I plan to make a lot more videos like this and covering other topics in the future. If you wouldn't mind, please leaving a like and please subscribe. I will make you an honorary citizen of Girly Pop Nation. I promise. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.